I feel good, even though I shouldn't. I'm chilling so hard, couldn't tell you where the hood is. I'm looking like $1,000,000, sucker.
Welcome to This Week in Music. My name's Ian Rogers, and we're here at Ocean Way Studios in Nashville with singer, songwriter, musician, author, jack of all trades, painter.
Raconteur, painter,
Rodney,
thief.
Rodney Crowell. Rodney, thank you so much for joining us here at Ocean Way.
You bet.
What this place? You know, have you recorded here? I assume.
Yeah, I've recorded here in every room. The main room in the old church next door is a pretty renowned place to record.
And what have you done here?
Oh, we did the Notorious Cherry Bombs record here. Did my wife Claudia's record here. Did a Brady Seals record. Did a track for the Rolling Stones. We did Jumpin' Jack Flash up here for Rolling Stones Flattery record. You know, a bunch of us.
Right.
B-leaguers pretending we were A-league.
How was it?
It was good. It was good fun. That was good fun. Really good fun. I recorded with Billy Bob Thornton up in B. And then Studio C is a place that you come in when people are just doing vocal overdubs. Maybe somebody wants you to come sing harmony on something.
Right.
You go into C.
Gotcha. How long have you been here in Nashville?
I've been in Nashville 31 years.
And are you here full time, or Nashville's your life? Where were you before?
I live here.
And where were you before?
I was in Los Angeles before, in the 70s, mid-70s to the early 80s, and I moved here. I married a California girl who had roots in Nashville, and we started having children, so she said, I want to get out of LA, so we moved here.
And how do you find Nashville? It seems to me you've always been part of the progressive side of Nashville. Is that fair to say? Well,
as I say to people about Nashville, it's there's always been the industry here, and I think it's the upside of the industry here, even if it's gotten really, really corporate, is that the creative community is beyond anywhere I've ever been. It's like, for instance, Bela Fleck lives here. Right. You know, I can actually call Bela Fleck on the phone and say, hey, could you come by and play banjo on a tune? And that's worth waiting 5 years just to experience that collaboration. And the good thing about the industry here is that, you know, people like John Jorgensen or Michael Rhodes or Eddie Bears, or take your pick of all these astoundingly accomplished musicians, the machine spits out checks and raises families and affords someone like Bela Fleck to live here occasionally to record with people and then to hub out and play his gigs. And to me, that's always been the upside of Nashville collaboratively. And then it's a history, the history of the songwriting history here is, I'm romantic about it. For instance, I can go down on 8th Avenue, on the corner of 8th Avenue and Wedgwood. There's a second-story window where Roy Orbison wrote Pretty Woman. And if I drive by that window, if I'm stopped at that red light, I can look up at that window and say, that's where Roy Orbison wrote Pretty Woman. There's a sidewalk down there, and that's how the song happened. A beautiful woman walked by the sidewalk as he was sitting up there on a hot summer day looking out the window, and he wrote Pretty Woman.
Wow.
To me, that's my romantic attachment to Nashville as a writer. The romantic notion of Harlan Howard and Willie Nelson, 3 a.m., drinking and smoking dope and writing songs. It appeals to me. It appeals to my romantic nature.
And how have you divided your time as a songwriter and a musician over those 30 years? Like, how would you say the balance has been?
Well, I don't look for balance. You know, I'm writing as we speak. You know, I was driving over here to sit and talk with you and working on a song. And when I leave here, I'm going to another studio where I'm working, and I'm going to continue working on that song until I get there. So there's really no balance. The songs drive everything. So I don't think
the songwriting is the basis.
I don't think I'm ever not writing songs. Even when I'm not writing songs, it's like the reservoir is hopefully filling up, and historically it's filled up and spills over, and I write something new, and it's just what I do. It's my intent to write songs.
What's changed in the last 30 years? I mean, you talked about the Nashville's ability to support families and keep the machine going. Do you think, is that, with the changes in the industry overall, is that in danger?
Creatively, I've seen, let me put it to you like this. When I first came to Nashville the first time in 1972, I stayed for 2.5 years before I moved to Los Angeles. At that time, that's when I ran in with the likes of Guy Clark and Townes Van Zandt and Mickey Newberry and David Only and Steve Runkle and Bobby, a real crew of guys who've been successful and even legendary songwriters. And the conversation around songwriting was never about who cut your song. It was never about money. It was about, those 3 a.m.s were about, okay, what do you got new? How's it going? What's your creative process? How much have you grown? What have you got to show? And the competition wasn't for money. The competition was to be able to hold a seat in a circle by showing something new that you had. It's like showing a painting.
Right.
Here's the new painting I'm working on. And it was never about what that painting was the money it was gonna earn you. It was like, what's your process, as an artist? How are you growing? So I flashed forward 20 some years, and I started to notice that the generation of songwriters who were raised on video would come to town, and it was all about, you go to those songwriters in the circle thing, and they would talk about who cut the song, who they co-wrote the song with, which is all basically a way of saying how much money it's made. Right. And its only credentials was how much money it's made. People come to me and say, you should write with so-and-so, he wrote such and such and such and such. Oh, I never know what they're talking about, because that doesn't mean anything to me that they wrote a hit for Take Your Pick. It's what is your carrot? Is your carrot money, or is your carrot becoming a better artist? So for me, I'm glad I came around here when I did, because my carrot remains the same. Now, some people could look at that and say, well, you're looking at the wrong carrot, buddy. You'd be rich if you were following this other carrot, and that's probably true, but it's not as romantic.
And is it so? I'm sure it's not just you. Is there a parallel Nashville that's following a different carrot?
Oh, my daughter, her crew, Chelsea Crowell. That crew. They're listening to Graham Parsons, and they're listening to the Everly Brothers, and they're listening to music that I love. They're listening to the Beatles, and they're listening to Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen would be an iconic, like the holy grail of songwriting to this 20-something crowd that I really enjoy. So it is alive and well. It just seems like if mainstream is your goal, it's a very narrow band.
And do you think that with the changes in the business, it gets narrower?
In my quest to not become fossilized, as the business has changed, and Ian, you being one of the first people I ever really had conversations with about the potentiality of the digital world and internet, I come from such an analog mindset. I started making records on tape. We use razor blades to edit, so I'm a throwback to that time. I can't say that it's really better times, but I'm starting to understand and embrace the notion that the good old days are here. You know, I haven't figured it out by any means, but I suspect, and I prefer suspecting these are good old days better rather than thinking the end is near.
I agree with you. You know, one thing that you said to me once when you referred to us talking some time ago, you were talking about how when you first came to town and you made records here, or even through the '80s when you made. I mean, you had one record that had how many number ones on it? 8 number one hits on it or something?
No, 5.
Oh, 5. Okay.
Should have been 8.
80s, 8. I had state stuck in my head. But 5 number ones on one record, right? But the way that you would make that record was kind of a high stakes game relative to getting together with some friends in a house and making a record, which is something that you know you've gone back to.
Yeah.
What's the is that what you mean when you say the good old days are back or here again?
No, I mean that if I'm understanding the high stakes of making gamble of say making a record in 1987 was that we did use big recording studios and
therefore big budgets.
Big budgets, paid. All the musicians got paid double scale.
Which means what for our audience?
Well, for a 3-hour blocks for a double scale musician in 1987, that would have been $1,800 a day. So if you got a band of 6, and studios then were renting for $1,500 to $2,000 a day, so you spend $150,000 in a hurry.
Right.
Now flash forward to 2010, I got together with some of the same guys that I made that record with in 1987, almost the same group of guys. We spent 3 days in a studio, an inexpensive studio, and we recorded live with no headphones, and we recorded a record, and the guys, the new deal is, hey guys, let's just make a record and we'll all split the profits. I'll split it with you, we'll all split it evenly, so that you know, now
they're invested in it.
Yeah, now you can make a record for, you know, instead of $150,000, you can make a really, and with the thing that we've learned about the upside of digital recording is that I finally learned how I could use it like an old tape machine, which is I don't have to use it to make it perfect. I just can use it to create live performances in the studio. So what was $150,000, $180,000 to make a record is now $22,000.
Wow.
You know, to me, there's a real upside to that. Next thing we got to do is learn how to, you know, we just need to call everybody's house and tell them, hey, I got a new record.
Right.
You know, then we'll be.
Getting people to know about it
right.
is a real challenge. And there's scarce attention. It occurs to me though that there's a very different sound in those records too. How does the business, you know, the way that those albums get created, the fact that, you know, one costs $150,000 or more and then has a lot of money put on top of it from a marketing perspective, how does that affect the sound of the album that you make relative to one you're going to record in a house with your friends?
Well, and the records, the last 3 records I've made, from Sex and Gasoline to the record I just finished with Joe Henry and Ken, songs by Mary Carr and Rodney Crowell, and this record that I have in the can, and the record I'm working on right now on a record with Emmylou Harris. We're doing a duet record.
Wow.
So the one thing that the shrinking of the largesse, the financial largesse, has been a blessing to me, because I'm a better performer than I am singer. And for me to go the lush way of recording basic tracks and getting it all polished up perfectly and then coming back in days later and overdubbing a vocal. I'm not any good at that. I had some success doing that, but I don't like it. And the record, if you listen to It's All Over Now by the Rolling Stones, you listen to Kathy's Clown by the Everly Brothers, or listen to any Van Morrison record, or Only the Lonely, or Pretty Woman, or it's performance. Hit the Road Jack by Ray Charles is a performance. It's not an overdubbed, perfectly crafted thing. So to me, the narrowing of the money helped me to discover that the best way for me to record is to perform and do it live. That's the reason we've done away with headphones in the studio, because I can play and sing a song, and the guys can hear me, and that's how we perform now. And that's a performance. It's not a production.
Yeah. Well, it's, and as a listener, from my point of view, if you tell me, I don't know, maybe I don't even know who the artist is, but you got 2 records, and one of them is done in the best studio with a high budget, and everything was dialed in ahead of time, and come in with the best musicians, and you knock it out in 3 days, and then you tell me another one was recorded by a group of friends in a house, I'll tell you which one I would prefer to listen to first. Right off the bat, I'd rather hear the one that's done by that feels like a party, than the one that feels like it was made for radio.
Right. Well, there's a difference there. It's like I can't fault the artists who are at the top of their game with radio, so they have to craft those records that way. That's the business they're in. But luckily for us, the middle class in the recording industry, we are free to figure it out however we can. And to me, performance is the upside.
You pointed at the key challenge, though, which is, without the marketing dollars of the former business behind it, it's hard to get people to know this new record exists.
Yeah. That's the sad part of it. I mean, for me, honestly, for an artist like myself, where I try to edit pity out of my day-to-day reality, but the truth is, I have at times gone, damn, I'm making what I really think is the best work that I've done, and at a time when the audience has shrunk considerably, and it's like, God, I want to do over again. I want 1988 to happen again, and I want to show that large audience what I got now, because I like what I have now better than what I had then. And I think I'm realistic about that, because I've tried to remain. It goes back to those days I described to you when I was showing a song to Guy Clark and Townes Van Zandt for the first time. I've still tried to operate on, here's what I got. This is the best of what I got now. And I don't know how to reach more people with it. I would assume that you just keep plugging away.
No, I think that we are in this gap between whatever was behind us and whatever is coming next. There's a bit of a gully here where we're trying to figure it out, and I think the hope is that because direct connections are possible, you can have direct and deeper connections with people who love the music on a level that's deeper than can I drive audience to radio with this track, and something that goes directly to them.
It's ultimately a richer artistic experience, for honestly, when I in 1989, 90, 91, when I was living the reality of top of the chart success, I wasn't happy.
Why not?
It just didn't feel. I felt like I'd made some good music. I could put it this way, Artie Shaw. I remember seeing that jazz documentary that Ken Burns put together, and he interviewed Artie Shaw, who said, I stopped playing because people got fixated on what I was doing on my way to becoming better. And when he said that, I thought, that was what was happening to me in 1990. It was like I was being, I was having my 15 minutes in the sunshine there, and I was really thinking, this is not as good as what I can do.
Right.
It's good for right now, but I can do better. I'm thinking, I'm sort of crying out in the night to myself, I know I can do better. But people still start conversations about me, or they're introducing me as the guy who had 5 number ones off. But I sit there and I go, no, I'm the guy that wrote I've Done Everything I Can, There's Nothing I Can Do on Sex and Gasoline, which is a far more honest, heartfelt, blood on the tracks song.
Right.
So I don't remember the question.
No, I think that's exactly what I was curious about, is why, it seems to be this imbalance between success and fulfillment,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now we're at this time where you're doing work that is more fulfilling personally,
Yeah.
but then the question is, how do you get it to the audience? And it's something that I take personally, because that's that's the business that I'm in, and I know how hard it is.
I know. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because it just occurred to me. The altruistic artist here is like, I'm thinking, how can I continue to live above my means, as I've always done, making good art, And it's like the funny thing is, boy, it's like I'm making really good work now, but the audience has shrunk, and I still continue to live as if it were 1991. It's, all right.
Well, but I think that the interesting question is, the artists that come next who didn't have success, in a previous music business, how do they find the audience and come up that curve? I mean, these are the things that I think about every day. So we need this business to be sustainable. And look, there's always going to be a gap. I've come to terms with the fact that there are tens of thousands of people who make a living at their art in the music world,
right.
and there are tens of millions of people who shop at Guitar Center.
Mm-hmm.
So that gap is always going to be great. There's not
Right.
it's not as if,
Right.
even if we collectively do a phenomenal job and make that number hundreds of thousands, there'll still be a big gap between the people who would like to be, subsisting from their art, and people who will actually be subsisting from their art. But I think that you do want to, for me, there should be some sort of an efficiency between connecting the people who would love your songs with those songs, right? And that's the thing, is I think that, to your point, I think it's true. There is it's hugely inefficient today.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot more people who would love, who would love those songs that have heard them. It's just a reality, and we got to figure out how to close that gap.
Yeah, true.
You've
but we being sort of having the same goal in mind, I just have to remain standing,
It's a look, and it's no different running a technology startup. It's a war of attrition.
Yeah, right.
You've recently released a book, though.
Mm-hmm.
How's that gone?
That's good. That was good.
Tell us about the book. I mean, the book doesn't cover your entire life.
It's my childhood. And, the thing that I was proud of about that book is, and when people say, wow, this is not about your career at all.
Right.
And it's not. I made a decision early on that I wanted to be considered, to be taken as a writer. And I wanted to be evaluated in the same discussion with Rick Bragg or Mary Carr or Tobias Wolff. Not that I might achieve that, but
the writing, it definitely is one of those books that when you read it, the writing is striking, and my first reaction was, wait, there's no ghostwriter on this. Rodney wrote this. This is an
No,
extension of his.
I would not.
He's a songwriter, I guess. So I guess he has it in him. But it is a very well written piece of prose in addition to being
that was
an honest story.
to me. That was my goal was to write prose, to learn to write prose.
Was that hard? I mean,
Yes, it was very hard.
a lot of work and revisions.
A lot of revision. I couldn't. I mean, revision to the nth. Rewritten.
It's a good thing.
Revising one paragraph 100 times.
See, aren't you glad you have computers for this?
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't have done it on a typewriter. I could not have done it. But the willingness to spend a month on one paragraph, and when 27 of those days were not realizing the two words that needed to come out of that paragraph in order to make it sing. I always felt when I finished the book, no matter what happened, I would have the sense of accomplishment that I did that. I wrote that book, and it has been very well reviewed. I've been reviewed, like I got a lead review in the New York Times, and it was evaluated as a real writer. So that was satisfying, and the publishers made the advance back, so it was
That's great.
Financial success. So there you are.
Will you do it again?
Sure.
And will you do it again as a piece of fiction, or will you continue the story? Because you as you said, you don't really get to probably the part that a Rodney Crowell fan would be expecting.
Well, there's no doubt that I had very colorful parents that were really the centerpiece of the narrative of Chinaberry Sidewalks, my memoir. So I was blessed with those two people to write about, because they were, as John David Souther said to me, he says, God, if my parents were that colorful, I'd write a book too.
Right.
Now, I do have stories that, with people like Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson and, iconic figures that I could write about. I just have to decide if there is a way, or uncover the way to create a narrative that's not about the people I know in the music business, because to me that's like, that sounds ghost written.
Right.
So I'd have to find a way to capture these characters in a narrative that reads beyond, oh, ain't I cool, I knew Johnny Cash intimately.
Right.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
In a son-in-law kind of way.
Yeah, it wouldn't work.
Yeah. What about fiction then?
Now, fiction, I could write another memoir in. It took me 10 years to write Chinaberry Sidewalk.
I was going to ask how long. I mean, if
Took
you're
10
spending a
years.
month on a paragraph, there's a lot of paragraphs in there.
It took me 7 years to learn how, and 3 years to throw that 7 years away and then write the book.
Right. Well, the next one then is only going to take 3 years.
Unless I were to attempt fiction, in which case it would take me a long time, because people like Don DeLillo or Richard Ford or Stephen King, the people who are real fiction writers. If I were going to write fiction, I'd have to aim for those guys.
Right.
And they know things about plot, and I wouldn't have any clue how to outline a plot,
pacing.
and pacing.
Yeah.
I could figure it out, I think, over a period of 10 years or so.
Right.
But so I'd have to decide, would I continue? I know how to reconstruct memory now. Fiction would be the more noble pursuit, and it may be what I try to do.
What if not fiction? What's next? What are you working on now?
Songs, and you mean in prose, or just as an artist?
As an artist, generally.
I'm working right now. I'm leaving here to go. We're putting the last few dabs of paint on an Emmylou Harris and Rodney Crowell duet.
Wow.
So, and that's something that Emmy and I talked about doing for 30 years, and finally got around to it.
How's it sound?
It sounds good, and we're working with Brian Ahern, who produced my first album back in '78 and all of Emmy's first 7 or 8 albums. So
And the compositions are yours?
there, 4 of them are mine, and the rest of them are songs that we dug up that we just wanted to sing. It's a little different than a Rodney Crowell singer-songwriter record.
Sure, yeah.
And we're doing Chris Christopherson's song and doing some of my old songs from the days when Emmy and I first started running around together. And I'm writing songs. You know, it's just I'll just get up and go to work every day. You know, I figure my life is how I imagine you know, I read about Renoir or Camille Pissarro or some artist who just got up and painted every day.
Right.
You know, that's all I do. Same thing. That's the way I look at it. It just breaks down to I get up and I make stuff up.
Thank you. And thank you for doing it.
You bet.
Well, just to wrap up, I have a final question for you. I always like to ask at the end of the program if people have a recommendation, not your music, something else that you're listening to, or that you've heard recently, or maybe even something that you've read that you recommend people go out and check out for themselves. Anything come to mind?
Oh, well, you know, I'm in a music. It's, you know, for me these days it's Howlin' Wolf and Lightnin' Hopkins and Son House, and it's the old blues guys, and not the electric blues, but the old.
I woke up yesterday and put on a Howlin' Wolf record.
Howlin' Wolf, How Many More Years, or
yeah.
I Am Backdoor Man, or Elmore James, Shake Your Money Maker. To me, the thing that's most compelling to me now is the blues, and I'm trying to locate my own inner blues guy, being blue-eyed white guy. I know it's in there somewhere, and so that's the music that's compelling to me. Although when I heard some of my youngest daughter's boyfriend is a real clever lad from New York City. He put me onto Mumford & Sons when it first came, and I've suggested that record to people because there was some sort of spiritual awareness at the core of that music that I thought was refreshing for me to hear from a 20-something band.
They'll be here this week.
Will they?
The Ryman, 3 nights.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I'll take the Howlin' Wolf recommendation too, and Lightnin' Hopkins.
Yeah.
That's definitely on my personal wavelength.
R.L. Burnside's too. He's been. That's.
And R.L. did actually had sort of a time in the '90s where he was getting together with the Blues Explosion guys and doing some real,
But I like his acoustic.
Hard rock.
I like his acoustic blues.
Yeah,
just that right-handed guitar playing that he does.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks a lot for coming on and chatting with us. I really appreciate you taking the time. And we'll look out for it.
Okay.
And the book is Chinaberry Sidewalks. And it's
Ken, songs by Mary Crowell and Rodney. Mary Carr and Rodney Crowell. Relatives. Which, by the way, has Nora Jones and Emmy Lou and Chris Christopherson and myself and Vince Gill and Lucinda Williams and Roseanne Cash and Leanne Womack performing songs on it.
Wow.
Good lineup.
All right.
All right.
We'll grab that too.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Rodney. Really appreciate it.
You bet. My pleasure. You know it.
Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.
I feel good, even though I shouldn't. I'm chilling so hard, couldn't tell you where the hood is. I'm looking like $1 million, sucker.